Ladies and gentlemen, hi, you're welcome to my lecture today. We are going to be looking at the classroom management. This is the course unit we were handling in the previous session, and we're back with the same. We are looking at the art and science of classroom management. In the previous session, we looked at what is classroom management. I emphasized the importance of classroom management. Here I am talking about the art and science of classroom management. We're saying it's a science because there are principles that manage, that guide the classroom management. It's not that anybody can manage a class. Yes, there are those who are talented, they can manage a class, but they must use the principles of classroom management. That's what makes classroom management a science. There are principles, guidelines that guide the management of classroom management. And for classroom management, we're talking about the effective classroom manager or a teacher should be well prepared for a lesson. We're saying the art and science of classroom management, and we're looking at what makes you a good classroom manager. And I'm saying you must have the principles, the guidelines of good classroom management. And when we're talking about preparedness as one principle, you cannot enter a class when you're not well prepared. We're looking at the organization, how teaching takes place. Curriculum, syllabus, scheme of work, lesson plan, and then we come to classroom management. All that is planning and preparation. You must prepare for teaching. A lesson must be well prepared for. A teacher who is going into a classroom must anticipate so many things, either discipline or indiscipline. If you anticipate something that is going to happen, you're ready how to handle. If something is about to happen, you must be ready how to handle. Or else, if you don't, it will result into indiscipline. And once it results into indiscipline, we say poor classroom management, an environment that is not conducive for learning. Ladies and gentlemen, for us teachers who are professional teachers, we said teachers are professional teachers because they have undergone training. You are going to become teachers because you are undergoing training and we are receiving the techniques of teaching. And we're looking at the qualities, the competencies you must have for you to be a good teacher. What should you do to be able to manage a class? What are the guidelines of a good classroom management? Which principles do we have for good classroom management that a teacher must employ, must apply, must use to have an environment that is conducive for learning? A conducive environment that is violence-free, chaotic-free, and able to provide the environment for students to learn. We're looking at the competency number one. A teacher must have the knowledge of his learners. If I had a class of 60 students, I should be able to know who are they, what are their abilities, what are their characteristics, how do they behave. That's why on a lesson plan, I wanted you to put a section for general information. Age, classroom, the class, P5 or P3, I need to know. Are they boys or girls? And when we have those, we're able to know what kind of class we are going to have. The boys have got their abilities and their characteristics. The girls have got their abilities and their characteristics. University students, we know their abilities and their characteristics, and that means I should be able to know the type of people I'm teaching. How do they behave? We talked about andragogy and when we talked about pedagogy. If I don't understand my students, I don't know their characteristics, I don't know their behavior, which teaching method am I going to use? That's why it is important that a teacher who is very competent should be able to know the students, to know their characteristics, to know their behavior so that he's able to manage them, know their interests, and then provide their interests. If they are old people, how do you handle old people? If they are children, how do you handle children? If they are children of 10 years, we know the attention span is small. For example, they cannot be in one place or study something for 1 hour. That's why I was saying in the lesson plan, in the scheme of work, at the level of a period, we cannot have a triple for a primary school. But we can have a triple lesson in S5 and S6 because we know the characteristics of teenagers at S5 and S6. They are 17, 18, 19. So we know how they behave. Their attention span is good. They can be attentive for some time. For the lower class, we know the attention span. So the lecture or the lesson should be around 30 minutes or less. 20 minutes, then we sing. 30 minutes, then we sing. 40 minutes, we conclude. We don't go beyond that because we understand their kind of characteristics. What am I saying? If you're to have a good classroom management, you must understand your learners. You must know them. Where do they come from? Are they boys? Are they girls? Are the majority boys or the majority female? Those are other characteristics because they affect the way we behave. The women, there is a way we behave. The boys and men we know how they behave, then we handle them like that. If it's a mixed class, we know how to handle. If it's for old people, we know how to handle. If it's for young people, we know how to handle. You must know them and therefore have a technique of how to handle them. Another point we can talk about is the mastery of the subject matter. I want to confess that if you took me to a class to teach chemistry, me an art teacher, it would be very difficult to control a class. I will be pronouncing some words wrongly, I will be delivering wrong content. What does it mean? We must have the knowledge of what we are going to teach at the fingertips. Teachers, whenever you are going to teach, have the knowledge of what you are going to teach. Of course, we can't teach what we don't know, but how much do we know? We don't want to go to a class and then we are challenged. Once you go to a class and you start speaking things that are not understood, that cannot be understood, the discipline of students towards you is going to change. If you're in a class that is at a higher level than yourself, you are teaching people who know more than you do. Because I said it's a teacher, learner-centered kind of class. But the teacher must be at the top. Should be having more knowledge than the learner. So you go to a class where you're teaching what you don't know. Classroom management will be an issue. Students will not respect you. Students will be talking when you're talking. Students will be moving in and out because they know you have nothing to deliver. More to that, we can say the effective communication ability. We're looking at how do we achieve effective or good classroom management. And we're saying a teacher must have some competencies for him or her to be able to manage a class. One of them was we must know the type of the characteristics of our learners. 2, we said we must have enough knowledge. We must master the knowledge of what we're teaching. And 3, we're talking about effective communication. Can you communicate effectively? There is communicating and then communicating effectively. If you cannot communicate effectively, you are likely to have a problem with classroom management. There are people who pronounce some words in a funny way. There's nothing we can do. Sometimes it's tribal or ethnicity. There are some people who can have very good English and you reach in a class and you're speaking your very good English to the students, P1. You're using sophisticated English. You're not communicating. You're pronouncing your words in a different way. Pronunciation, how do you speak is very important. Can you explain points clearly? I'm looking at communication being a competence for good classroom management. Can you communicate effectively? Can you pronounce the words properly? Can you explain the ideas clearly or you explain them vaguely? How clear you explain them depends on how knowledgeable you are. On writing, do you write the words on the blackboard, on the chalkboard very well? Or students are not able to read what you're writing? All these are issues of effective communication. The type of instructional materials you use or you choose can communicate very well or affect the communication. You might be in a class of primary school 5 or 6, and then you're using mature content for them. Then the choice of the instructional material you're using can affect. The media you use and how you use it affects classroom management. These are 3 things. We're saying the level of knowledge of the teacher, we're talking about the type of students we have, and then we're saying how the teacher communicates will affect classroom management. Classroom management is critical, we said, because it is at the instructional level. Classroom management must be effective, must be good classroom management. We also have a challenge of teachers and students relationship. We need to have a good rapport. It's one competence that we can acquire. It's one competence that we can learn. It's behavioral in a way that some people are naturally rude. It's a natural characteristic for people to be very rude. For example, whoever is talking in your class, you slap. You need a little bit of patience. How do you relate with them if you're slapping them? Will they love you? Will they have that kind of relationship? How do you relate with them? I'm not saying you relate with them to a level of going beyond the classroom friendliness or the classroom relationship. Right? We're not saying you be too friendly that you even lose respect in class. We're just saying be polite. Eh? If you're in a class, listen to people's issues, the learners' issues. Be kind to them. Be available for them. When someone is talking to you, give a listening ear. When someone gets something wrong, don't say you stupid boy, you stupid girl. That will affect your relationship with the student. We're saying we need to have, if we don't have, we must create a good rapport, a good relationship with the students. If you don't have a good relationship with students, you will have issues with classroom management. There is respect for a teacher and there is fear for a teacher. There are some teachers who are known that they are feared by students. There are some teachers who are known that they are respected by students. These 2 things are different. Instead of creating fear, please create. Don't create fear. What I'm saying, do not create fear, create respect. Don't beat students so that they can respect you. Be friendly to them so that they respect you. When you beat them and they run away whenever you come, that's fear. But when you make friendship with them, you relate with them very well. Whenever they see you, they enter the class. That's respect. Then we have another competence of our saying that we need to know, we need to master the skill how we manage instructional materials. You remember we talked about instructional materials and learning materials and teaching aid. How do you handle them? If you introduce it in a class, in the middle, do you introduce it at the beginning of the lesson? Do you introduce it in the middle of the lesson? Do you introduce it at the end of the lesson? So management, effective management of instructional material. If it's a video, you can start with it, they watch it, then they can continue. But if it's a video that will bring chaos or will bring excitement and people forget about learning, so it's important you bring it at the end to concretize, to cement what they have learned. So the management of instructional materials, if they are to have the instructional materials, if they are locally produced, can they be part of the instructional material? If it's molding, making a man out of clay, Don't go to your art room and make it and then bring it to them. Let them participate. We're talking about how you manage the instructional material. Let the students participate in the production of that man out of clay. They will get to know it is our man, we made him out of clay, and then they take care of that instructional material. They look at it as their own. But if you go in an art room, produce it and bring it here, they will not mind about it, and breaking it is very easy, and jumping around in class when you are introducing it will also be an issue. To manage classroom successfully, you must apply the management principles. All of us in the teaching profession, yes, we learn the techniques of teaching, but we also learn management principles. When you're in a class and you want it to be a good classroom and you want to have it a well-managed class, make sure you apply the management principles of planning, leading, and organizing. Thank you for listening to me, Kawazira Dina, Mountains of the Moon University, having taken you through this topic of classroom management. I thank you, and we meet again.